Hey, it's Sean with Rainier Arms, and today I want to talk about this sweet product right here, and this is the BOE Suppressor from BOE Suppression. Now, we ended up finding these suppressors out when we were at SHOT Show earlier this year, and we spent a good amount of time at their booth really talking about and diving into their suppressors and what they have to offer and what makes them so special. And they really are pretty dang cool. They're really the next generation of modular suppressors, and you'll probably see that from this video when we talk about all the different parts of it. But as you can see, this suppressor does have a very unique attribute, and that would be this right here, and that's their mono core. And because of that mono core, they're able to offer a great balance between the overall size, the overall weight, the sound suppression, but as well as the back pressure. And they're doing that utilizing some of their patented technology when it comes to their pressure equalization, as well as just optimizing the whole symmetrical or the geometries of the entire core and the suppressor itself. So putting all those things together and making sure that they're making these cans optimized for caliber specific, they've been able to come out with a product that is pretty cool and is very unique because of a whole lot of cool features that we'll get into. So first off, as we're already looking, you can see this mono core right here. Has a sweet, unique look. On the backside, you're going to have your standard measurements for a hub. So you can run a Plan B, you can run your ASR, your chemo, whatever you want for your attachment to the muzzle device. The core itself is going to screw directly into the tube very easily, which means that this bad boy here is easily serviceable. So you can take this apart and clean it just about any time that you want to, as long as it's not scalding hot. But it's going to mean that it's going to be very, very serviceable. Now, the design in itself, when you pair it with the two end caps that it does ship with, either a solid end cap and or the vented end caps, you put all this together and you're getting a product that is very, very durable, especially when you couple the finish on it, the D360 finish. That finish is designed for high heat. It's designed for high pressure applications. It's going to be very good at kind of making sure that carbon isn't connecting to it. They call it carbon phobic, but the carbon itself doesn't want to build up on the outer tube very easily. And even though it's serviceable, very serviceable, you can clean it very easily. It's just going to make that cleaning a little bit easier if you're going, like most people, a much longer duration in between cleaning intervals of their suppressor. So when we're looking at this again, it's optimized for the calibers, and we'll get into the calibers here in a little bit. But because of that optimization and your ability to fine tune if you want to run with a vented or not vented cap, with their flow system, all that, what that's going to mean, again, is reduced back pressure. That's going to mean that you're going to have better longevity when it comes to your gas system, because you're not going to have as much gas pressure being pushed back into the system itself, which also would mean a little bit cleaner gun versus some other suppressors when shooting suppressed. But it also means that you're going to have less gas in your face, so less toxin in the shooter's face, which, as more research has come out, has become a very, very important feature that many shooters are looking for when it comes to utilizing a suppressor. So talking a little bit more about the core. Now, we already talked about how it is fully symmetrical all the way around, and then it being caliber specific as well. With that, because of how it is caliber specific, it's going to be pretty hard to see in the video, but the core, but what you'll see is in the middle, it's going to be a very concentric center of the core, meaning that you're not going to have to worry so much about projectile striking or baffle strikes. Of course, they're very possible if there's a misalignment issue or some sort of catastrophic failure within the projectile itself. But that is also leads me to another cool feature about this. Because the core is separate from the tube, this monocore, this means that when there is a failure that does damage or destroy the core itself, they have found that the tube itself is still in perfectly good condition, which means that you can very easily swap out the core and then still maintain your tube. Now, you do have to send that into BOE Suppression, but because of how serviceable and how quick this is to switch around, they're saying that they can usually have those turned around in 24 to 48 hours, probably business days, I'm assuming, meaning that if you mess up and let's say you have a 5.56 core and you run a 30 cal projectile like a 308 through there, you're probably going to decimate this core itself. The tube will contain it. Now, the end cap itself, especially if you have a 5.56 end cap on there, the end cap itself will most likely be destroyed, but it's actually designed with these little lines that you'll see in the end cap itself. Those aren't there just for design. They're actually there to help this break appropriately, meaning that usually when this end cap fails, if it's more than just a strike and the end cap itself is going to break, it breaks along one of those lines, which means that the threads themselves are actually left in the tube, meaning that you haven't damaged your threads. Might be a little bit of a pain in the butt to get the end cap off, but you haven't damaged your threads, which means that your tube is still good to go. You send that into BOE Suppression, and they are going to replace the core with a fully functional core and replace your end cap. Next thing you know, after paying a core charge, literally a core charge, after paying your core charge, you have yourself a fully functional suppressor again without having to replace the outer tube. That I think is pretty freaking cool, especially if they can work on the ATF and maybe get it to where you can, very easily just buy multiple calibers in the cores and make that work. I don't know. That's all above my pay grade, but it's showing promise and it's showing something unique and different that you're not usually going to get. Typically when your suppressor fails, it is a very long process that can also end up costing you a lot of money. This is just a whole lot easier, and that in itself is just really cool to hear, because it's already been, the time that it takes for you to get your suppressor is a whole lot easier, or a lot shorter, I should say, versus some of my suppressors being over a year wait. So, I mean, we want to get these, we want to keep using them, and we want to minimize downtime as much as we can. That brings me to another point that I want to talk about that, again, makes me real excited about this company. So traditionally, especially with the long wait times with suppressors, we know that this new suppressor comes out, we end up buying it, we're sitting in our wait period, maybe it's a year long. By the time that we finally get our suppressor that we've been waiting for, the next mod comes out. So you bought mod 1, mod 2 comes out with all of its new features. It comes out before you even get mod 1. Of course, now, recently, that isn't as much of the case because the turnaround's quicker. Hopefully it stays that way, even gets faster. But BOE has a great program. What they're saying is if you buy the mod 1, like this bad boy is right here, and they make substantial upgrades to their core, you can send your mod 1 back, pay a core fee, and they'll replace that old core, the old mod 1 core, with the upgraded mod 1 core with whatever differences that it has in it. So it's an easy way for you to stay current within your mod without having to purchase an entirely new suppressor, pay that other additional 200 tax stamp, wait that time, especially if it becomes a long period of time again. So again, awesome stuff that BOE is doing for us, the end user, the consumer. So that makes me very excited about that. So let's dive a little bit more into the more technical aspects of this suppressor. Okay, so now when it comes to the more technical side, this suppressor right here that you're looking at, this is the 5.56 mod 1 with a titanium core. So when you're looking at the options with this, you can get the mod 1, which is your full size suppressor, but you can also get the mod 1S, which is going to be shorter. So the mod 1 itself is 6.8 inches long. The mod 1S is 4.6, so it's a much smaller suppressor, but it's still boasting all of the great aspects about the full size mod 1. But mod 1S being a whole lot smaller, you're just getting a lot lighter weight and, aspects like that. But again, the weight and all that, we're going to get into that, but that's going to be dependent on what package you pick. Okay. So starting from here, the outer tube itself is a grade 9 titanium. Now they went with titanium for a couple different reasons. One being how light it is. This is a little bit bigger suppressor with more parts to it, which means that you could end up being heavier as, weights stack. But going with the titanium, they're able to shave off some of that weight. But additionally, titanium itself, with the grade 9 that they went with, it does heat up very similarly to a steel, as if they were to use a steel tube, but it's going to cool down in about half the time. So its ability to dissipate that heat is just far better than what you're going to get from steel itself. With this design, also, this design on the tube is said to help with the heat mirage when looking through a scope once it's been heated up. And I haven't tested that part out. I've got to shoot this specific suppressor right here, this can that we have. I've shot this quite a bit and I really have enjoyed it. You'll see within the B-roll that we have, where you're seeing the gases coming out of the front of the suppressor. Very minimal gases coming out of the ejection port, which the gases that are coming out are slightly our fault because I didn't take the time to tune that rifle. It wasn't really tuned great when it comes to gas, but it wasn't much of an issue at all. But I just know it can be a lot better if I would have took the time to tune that rifle specifically to run a can a little bit better. Anyways, so the core that we have with this setup right here is a TI-64 grade 23 titanium. You can also select a Inconel 718 core if that's what you want to go with, but there's going to be a little bit more weight. We'll go over that too. So with that, it's going to be shipping with 2 different end caps. Now the end caps are caliber specific, so same with the core being caliber specific, but you're going to have the ability to have a vented end cap or an enclosed. Now, depending on your setup, that's where this becomes pretty cool. Some setups, like a standard 5.56 16-inch rifle, gas, let's say an AR-15, you're probably not going to notice a huge difference when it comes to sound suppression, or the sound itself, I should say, using the different end caps. The end caps are there to help you tune the dwell time, how long it takes for that gas to get out of the suppressor. And you'll start seeing a big change when you're utilizing like a bolt gun. But a 16-inch gun, not a big difference. All right, so now when we're talking about weights, the weights are going to determine a little bit based on the core that you're getting, and obviously if it's a Mod 1 or Mod 1S. So when we're looking at it here, this bad boy right here running the titanium core, it's actually going to be running a little bit lighter than Inconel, but the whole setup itself is going to be sitting at 15 ounces. Now, if you go with the Inconel core, you're going to be looking at 19 ounces for overall weight. And then with the Mod 1S, you can only get it in Inconel right now, and that's sitting at 14 ounces. When we're looking at the overall lengths, I've already mentioned it, but I'll go over it again. The Mod 1 is going to be 6.8 inches long, and the Mod 1S is going to be 4.6 inches short. Nice little mini guy. Overall diameter is the same regardless if you're utilizing the Mod 1 or the Mod 1S, and that's going to be 1.75 inches. So not overly large, which is going to help for those who want to tuck it in some hand guards or whatever you want to do with that. Now, when it comes to the caliber rating, again, it is going to be caliber specific, and there is going to be a little bit of a limitation if you're going with the Inconel versus the titanium core. So we'll cover the titanium core first. The titanium core right now is going to have a 5.56 option, a 30 cal option, a 360 option, and a 460 option. What that means is with the 5.56, you're going to be able to run your 5.56 NATO, your 223 Remington, your 22 ARC, as well as your 224 Valkyrie. For your 30 cal option, you're going to be able to run your 7.62 NATO, which is going to be a high pressure round, your 308 Win, your 300 Win mag, as well as your 7.62 by 39. For 360, we've obviously got our 350 Legend, 35 Remington, as well as 357 mag. And then for the bigger calibers, your 460. So you're going to be able to run a 450 Bushmaster, 458 SOCOM, as well as 400 Legend, and the good old 4570 Big Boy. So that again is with the titanium core. Now, if you're running the Inconel core, it doesn't matter if it is going to be the Mod 1 or the Mod 1S, you're on the same limitations, and those limitations are just going to be caliber specific for the 5.56 and the 30 cal. So you just won't be able to run the big high pressure bad boys like the 360 and the 460. But that being said, you're still going to have a lot of options when you're running with the Inconel if that's the route that you want to go. And you might be asking, what would be the reasons for that? Well, sometimes when you're running a titanium core, you might notice a little bit more spark coming out the front. Now, BOE has put a huge emphasis on not as much of the sound suppression or the sound signature, but trying to get the visual aspect to pretty much nothing. Their goal was to be as close to invisible or be as invisible as possible. And they have done a really good job of that. But again, based on your decisions, if you're running a 30 cal can in a 5.56 gun, you're obviously going to have a little bit more stuff coming out the front of that suppressor, which is going to change how invisible you really are. But being caliber specific and running an Inconel core, you're probably going to see less chance of any kind of sparking or flashing coming out of the front versus if you're running a titanium core. So that's just something that you've got to decide based on what you want to go after. Now, the videos that we have, some of the B-roll, you might see some sparks come out, but that was in the daytime. So during night, you might see a little bit different, maybe a little bit more just because of the low light situation. And we do want to do some videos showing that, as well as better showing what it sounds like from varying distances. Because when I was shooting this, based on time and weather constraints that we were under, we were shooting indoor. And you guys all know what shooting indoors like. The suppressor helps tremendously, but it really does no justice, especially when you're trying to record it. It's just picking up a whole lot of echoes, and it's just not really doing this can justice for what it is and what it can do. So look forward, or I'm looking forward to, you should look forward to it as well. But we're going to be doing, again, some more videos outdoors showing what this can sounds like from different distances. And I do want to do some low light shooting as well, because I want to show how good it is at making sure that the person who's watching you shoot isn't able to see where you're shooting from. So overall, my first impressions of it, utilizing it, shooting it, playing with it, is I'm actually pretty excited about it. I think that BOE has gone a great direction that I'm hoping to see a lot of other suppressor companies go as well, because that's just going to drive competition, which just means, we're going to see lots of really cool stuff come from that. The internal core aspect, I really like this idea. I think that this could be, it can be a game changer in a lot of cases, especially if we can get to the point where we can just buy internal cores at different diameters for, our different calibers, to make it a whole lot easier to have a suppressor that can be ran on multiple different guns. That would be sweet. I know that's not totally possible right now, but the ease of cleaning it is the serviceability aspect of it is a huge plus for me. The overall weight, not the lightest can out there, but obviously not the heaviest. There's some that are far more chunkier, far more heavy. Obviously, again, they were going for other features besides quietest and lightest. So quiet-wise, yeah, I've shot quieter cans, but really when it comes down to it, it's not trying to be Hollywood quiet per se. It's just reducing your shot signature, making it harder to figure out where you're shooting it from, but then also trying to be as invisible as possible. So keeping that flash down, keeping that sparking down, keeping all that down so that you can be as functional as you need to be in any kind of self-defense situation. But these cans, again, were designed more for use. They want it to be used in duty. They would love for military to pick it up, that kind of stuff. So that's the direction that they're going for, instead of going for a consumer base, which just wants the lightest and the quietest and all that. They're going for more practicality. They want quality, they want durability, they want full functioning, and they want that modularity aspect. And so far, I think that they've really gotten that. Shooting it, I did notice less back pressure. Like I said, when I was shooting it the other day, I didn't tune that gun very well. We do have a rifle speed gas block on there, and I had it tuned for a different suppressor. So when I did do a full mag dump on it, I did start to see some gas buildup, but it was absolutely nowhere near what I'm used to with majority of suppressors that I'm using, which shows a good amount of promise. So I know that on the next video that I do, hopefully when we're outside shooting, I'm going to make sure that that gun is tuned better for the suppressor, so that we're actually seeing the true capabilities, and not user error, because sometimes I'm just a big dumb monkey and I don't pay attention to the small details until after the fact. But putting it together, super simple, which I also appreciate, because taking it apart is super simple, which means cleaning it becomes super simple. Obviously, when I'm putting this on now, I don't have the hub adapter of my choice. In the video, we're running a Plan B hub adapter, just because that's what we were using for the time. But a lot of my rifle setups personally are this ASR, and that's just because I went that route years ago, and I want everything to be the same. But being on the marketing side, I get to play with a lot of stuff, so I get to try different stuff. End cap, again, super easy to put on. It's the same aspect, is just place it and then, screw it on. And at the end, you find yourself with a great looking suppressor, but one that functions incredibly well. So jump on our website, take a look at these. Again, we have them as a Mod 1 with Inconel core or titanium core, but we also have the Mod 1S, the little shorty guy, which Wish I would have picked that one maybe because it's just kind of cool, but I wanted to see what the full size can do. But we got those as well with an Inconel core. Jump on the website, check them out, and definitely stay in touch with what BOE is doing, because I have a feeling that they're not going to just stop right here, that they're going to keep making improvements, and it's just going to get better and better and better.